In this section, we will set up and install Pycharm on our computer. Pycharm is a professional Python code editor used to write, edit, debug, and run Python code. We will be using this editor for the duration of the course. Pycharm is an IDE, which stands for Interactive Development Environment. First, we will go step by step through downloading and installing Pycharm. The program is entirely free, and I will walk you through the entire download and installation process. Next, we will look at an introduction to the Pycharm program. This will include how to navigate the program, how to create projects and files, and the basic options that the editor gives us access to. Then will come an article which will guide us through setting up and installing pip on our computer. Next, we will learn about where the Python documentation is located and how to reference it. This will give us an understanding of where to go when we need help, or need to look up the built-in options we have available to us in the Python language. Finally, we will look at a recap of what we learned in this section of the course. In the next lecture, we will download and install Pycharm. In this lecture, we will download and install Pycharm. This is the code editor we will use for the Python portions of this course. The Pycharm code editor has a community edition that is free and open source. It also runs on Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. Pycharm was created by JetBrains, the company that also created IntelliJ IDEA and RubyMine. So if you have used any of these JetBrains code editors, Pycharm may look familiar to you once we start using it. To download and install Pycharm, we will open our web browser and go to the following link: https://www.jetbrains.com/pycharm/download. The community edition of Pycharm is free and provides support for Python. The other version of Pycharm shown here on the left is the professional version, which also supports HTML, JavaScript, and SQL. However, we will be using the free community version in this course. We should automatically be taken to the proper tab out of Windows, Mac OS X, and Linux. If that is not the case, please click the tab for the OS you are running on your machine. We will click the download button under the community section. Once we click the download button, the download should start in our browser. We will click the file to open it as soon as it is finished downloading. On the security prompt that comes up, we will click Run. The Pycharm Community Edition setup window will pop up, which will guide us through the rest of the installation process. Let's click the Next button. We will be asked to choose an installation location. I am okay with the default location, so I will click Next. Next up are some installation options, which are all unselected by default. The option you may be interested in is a desktop shortcut to open the program. If that is the case, you can click this checkbox. If not, we can just click Next. Finally, we are asked to choose a Start menu folder. I am fine with the JetBrains folder selected by default, so I will click the Install button. I'll speed up the video while the program installs onto my computer. Once the installation finishes, we can click the Finish button. In the next lecture, we will look at an introduction to Pycharm. In this lecture, we will look at an introduction to the Pycharm code editor. Let's open the Pycharm code editor that we downloaded and installed in the last lecture. If this is the first time that we are downloading and installing Pycharm, we may see a pop-up or two asking about importing settings and setting up preferences. Then we will come to a Welcome to Pycharm window. We can click Create New Project to create a new Python project. We will choose a location for our project. Also, the current name of the project, Untitled, is selected. We can type whatever we want the name of our project to be. Once we have done that, we will click the Create button. A Tip of the Day pop-up will appear, which we can just close out of. There are 11 main menu options at the top of the program. From left to right, there are File, Edit, View, Navigate, Code, Refactor, Run, Tools, VCS, Window, and Help. The File menu allows us to do things like create, open, close, and save files. The Edit menu gives us functionality to options like cut, copy, and paste. The View menu allows us to view recent files, as well as the ability to show or hide some of the main bars of the IDE. The Navigate menu lets us do things like go to a variable's declaration or implementation. The Code menu gives us access to features like code implementation, code folding, and moving code up and down in the editor. The Refactor menu lets us safely move, extract, and replace code. The Run menu allows us to run our code, and provides us access to options like running our code in debug mode, profiling the code, and working with breakpoints. The Tools menu allows us to use tools to work within our project. The VCS menu allows us to work with version control systems like Git. We can do things like commit, push, pull, and fetch code directly from within Pycharm. The Window menu is useful for working with the layout and arrangement of the windows in the editor. Finally, the Help menu lets us search for actions, gives us tips for working in the editor, and allows us to view tutorials and demos. Let's learn how to create a Python file within Pycharm. First, we will select the folder named after our project at the top of the hierarchy on the left side of the editor. Then, we will go to File, New. Let's click Python File. A pop-up will appear asking us to name our file. Once we have named our file and selected the Python file type, we will click OK. The file will be created and we will see it open in our editor. Note that once a file is created, named, and saved, you never have to continue saving the file. Pycharm has an autosave feature, enabled by default, that will automatically save the code after every change. This feature is very handy and helps ensure that you don't lose any work. If we want to log output to the console in Pycharm, we can use Python's print function. For example, we can print Hello World to the console as seen here. To run the code we typed, we can right-click on the file and select the Run option. Alternatively, we can click the play icon in the upper right-hand corner of the program. To clear the console of any output, we can click the trash can icon at the lower left of the console. In the next lecture, we will learn how to refer to the Python documentation. In this lecture, we will learn about referring to the Python documentation. To get to the Python documentation, the first step is to open the web browser on our computer. Then we will navigate to the following URL, https://docs.python.org/3. Note the 3. If we want to refer to the older Python version 2 documentation, we just need to change the 3 to a 2. For now, we will look at the latest version of Python, Python 3. On the left-hand side is the documentation by version, in case you want to look something up about a particular version. Then comes some other resources that you might find useful while working with the Python programming language. On the main part of the page to the right, there are 3 sections: parts of the documentation, indices and tables, and meta information. Clicking any of these blue hyperlinks will take us to that section of the documentation. We go to the documentation whenever we want to see the built-in options that the language gives us. When you first start out, using the documentation as a reference manual can seem overwhelming and even confusing. Documentation can be dry and difficult to read through. I've been programming for years, and every now and again I even find documentation that is poorly written or unnecessarily obscure. However, as time progresses, you will learn how to find the answers you seek easier and quicker as you become accustomed to the documentation. In the next lecture, we will look at a recap of what we learned in this section of the course. We downloaded and installed Pycharm, the code editor we will be using to write the Python code in this course. Pycharm is a professional code editor and is completely free. Then we got an introductory look at the Pycharm code editor. We learned about how to navigate the program interface, create a Python project, and create a Python file. After that, we set up and installed pip on our computer. After that came a look at how to reference the Python documentation. Understanding where the documentation is and how to use it is crucial so that we know where to go when we are stuck or need to look something up about the language. In short, this section got us up and running with the tools that we need to ensure that we can dive into the course material in the rest of the course. In the next section, we will get started working with the basics of Python programming.